Hello! Howdy! My name is Brent, and this is Cerro Gordo. Once upon a time, this used to be the largest producer of silver for the state of California. Something like 4,000 miners called these hills home, and together they pulled $500 million worth of minerals out of the mountain. For the past 12 months, this has been my home. This is 1 year at Cerro Gordo. So right here is pretty much where this year at Cerro Gordo began. You know, the night that I was coming into town, I was coming up the road and it was snowing, and I was in my little two-wheel drive Tacoma, and it started slipping and sliding right on this turn and made it right to about here to where it got stuck completely. And I left it there and I hiked into town in my all-bird sandals. And that kind of summarizes how prepared I was for this whole adventure. You know, I was in a truck that definitely couldn't survive the snow and shoes with no traction either. And so it's been a big change. But I thought a nice place to start would just be walking through town and kind of showing the different projects that I've been working on for the past year and some of the progress. At first, you know, being marooned on this mountain was an adventure. That's what I was looking for, and that's what I got. You know, it was an amusement park built by nature, and I had it all to myself. I didn't have to face these daily anxieties of the pandemic that all my friends back in Austin had to. You know, there was no worries that somebody sick had just touched a door handle right before I was there. And so I felt free and excited. You know, I even started this YouTube channel to document everything for my friends back home. Why, hello. All right, it's day 2 here at Cerro Gordo. Made it up in the middle of the night through the blizzard. Yesterday it snowed and it was really cold. Hoping it warms up a little bit, but it's hard to beat the scenery here. So just gonna try to work on some things that I want to learn, you know, how to use this camera a little bit more, reading more, writing more, hanging out. So we'll see. And I was having the time of my life, you know, but I think as the weeks turned to months, you know, Cerro Gordo became much more than just this carefree escape. You know, I went from being stranded by weather to secluded by choice. You know, I didn't want to leave. I felt almost that I couldn't leave, because the more I learned about the history of the town, the more I felt a part of it. So this is the original general store here at Cerro Gordo. Victor Beaudry opened this thing up in 1868. And when I first came here, I was staying in the Bellshaw house, which is located right there. And so by no other function than how close it was, this is my first project. And when we bought this place, the general store was basically just used for storage, especially the back room. You know, this front room was the old general store, and in the back was the butcher shop. And when we purchased it, this back room was home for anything and everything unwanted in Cerro Gordo's past. And so to even open that door was impossible. It was just floor to ceiling storage. I'm talking old couches, you know, boxes of Halloween decorations from 2008, Sunset magazines from 1990, as well as some really cool old artifacts. But the cleanup started out here. You know, when we got in here, there's all sorts of stuff kind of over here. And so for the first few weeks, it was just sorting through everything, getting an inventory of what was here, and seeing what should stay and what should go. And so now there's a bit more curation. This is kind of my favorite spot to sit and film some videos, but you know, spent some time and curated this front room for things that were already here on the property. Over here You can see we have some merch now. But same thing, just cleaning up these shelves, dusting, sorting through even behind these. I mean, even every bit of this was just stuffed. You couldn't even walk back here. This room might be among my favorite in all of Cerro Gordo. So again, when we got this, you couldn't even open this door. Pure storage, floor to ceiling. And then, over many, many weeks, sort through this stuff. Some say, some would leave. These glass cases were here back in the corner. So brought these out and started displaying some things that I found back in the mines. You know, when people ask me, you know, why do you back in the mines? Why do you, seemingly risk your life for stuff like old powder boxes? It's for exactly this reason. It's to display it. And so hopefully many generations of people can learn from all the different items found. You know, if I think about the past year and new skills or hobbies I've taken on, probably the biggest one has been mining. Mine exploration is something that I didn't do that much of growing up, believe it or not. I didn't have mines in my backyard. And I think even, for the first year of owning Cerro Gordo, you go 100 feet back into a mine just to say you went into one. Stay strong, tripod. We'll go the rest without you. We're pretty deep now where having to use my cell phone light for light. So I think I'm gonna turn around, but it's really beautiful back here. It's peaceful, make a great cheese cellar, wine rack, bobcat den, all sorts of fun things. But being up here for a year and only having so many things to do, I started just poring over all of these maps and these geology reports and just learning everything I could about every mine up here. And with that came a curiosity to go and check these things out myself. Exploring them is addicting, especially if you're finding historic relics. And you really quickly realize that if you're willing and able to go to places that others aren't, your chances of finding those relics are so much higher. And to me, the artifacts and the history is what it's all about. Every artifact tells a story. So does every mine shaft. And understanding each allows me to piece together a more complete understanding of the history of Cerro Gordo and relay that history and context to future generations. Look at that. You see it? How crazy is that? So what we're looking at here is a map of the main Union mine here at Cerro Gordo. And looking at this, it brings back all sorts of good memories over the past year. Right here at the zero, this is the hoist. This is where the cage is from 1865 that slowly lowers you down into all the different levels of the mine. So I took that hoist to get into things like the 200 level. In the early 1870s, somewhere around 30 miners died in a collapse at the 200 level, and their bodies were never recovered. And because of that and a bunch of other reasons, the shaft entrance to the 200 level was boarded up. There was collapse behind it. So we stopped at the 190 with the hopes of sneaking through this piece of wood and then digging our way through the collapse in. Or even down to the 700 level where the water is.
Your time right now is 1:32.
All right. This is the crew going down. Got Craig, Johnny, of course.
Of course. Let's look just like
700 level of Cerro Gordo. This is the pump. This is how we get water here at Cerro Gordo. Head back to the actual stump, the water source. Leading all the way back here to where Cerro Gordo gets water. Look at that. It's incredible. My goal with a lot of my other explorations was to find a different way into this maze of mines without having to use this cage. Because the cage requires a team of 4 to 6 people. You know, you got to convince 4 to 6 guys to spend their day to lower you down to explore. And so when I realized that, I started looking for other ways in. And when I found this map tucked away in the old general store, I noticed stuff like the Buena Vista Tunnel goes right in. The Omega Tunnel goes directly in. The Bullion appears to go in. And so I started knocking down all these leads to see if I could find a way to explore all this without having to take up so many people's time. So the Omega, for the longest time, was just a rumor to me. I was told that it was over the saddle and the approximate location of it, and that it led, as you can see, right into the 200 level. And so I started on the Omega months ago, and I tried everything. At first I thought it would be a thing of I moved aside some rocks and suddenly this massive tunnel would reveal itself. That ended up not being the case. So Robert, the caretaker here, came back, and he's a certified dynamite blaster. So we stuffed this with a bunch of dynamite. Fire in the hole. Boom! Still didn't get in. So then I put my newfound backhoe skills to the test, and I dug this thing almost every night for a month. After months of digging, I dug straight down, and old timbers that revealed themselves to be the Omega Tunnel. Unfortunately, it revealed itself right around the same time that I had to return the loader to the rental company. You know, I was using the loader just on the off hours when I wasn't using it for the hotel rebuild. And so I couldn't justify paying the rental fee just to indulge myself of trying to get into the Omega. But a company has offered to give me a loader again. So soon, very soon, in my second year here, I think I'm going to get in. I think the Omega Tunnel is one of the first big explorations I'm going to do in year 2. And it's all going to come from a backhoe. Especially when I look at something like this and I see the map and I see where it connects to, I just have to get into that thing. Then we go over to the Bullion Tunnel. And this was that was about the most scared I've ever been in the history of mine exploration for me. This was a 2-part thing. First time I tried to do here, and I thought the stope might connect in. That's so gross. Why is it? Dude, you know how that died? Something probably fell on it.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like that rock crushed it.
That's what I'm saying. So like, if that crushed that, it could crush us.
Yeah, well.
What is it?
I don't know.
Bobcat? Ew, look at the blood like driplets on it. Look how big this cave is. Ready for this? And so pretty quickly after that, we came to the conclusion that whatever entrance may have been there has collapsed over the years. The rocks have fallen to the point where it's inaccessible. We came back another day to try to find this connection into the 400 level. And the idea there was, you know, you'd go back, and this is pretty much at the 0 level. So 400 feet of ladder would lead you down to the 400 level. Did a rung just give out?
Yes. I felt it giving too, I just didn't get off of it.
But there's like 6 foot of ladder rungs out here. Did all these break on the way down?
Yeah, it's not 6 feet, is it?
Yeah.
Is it really? And then descend down with your descender.
Where?
Right down this way. See how all of these are missing?
Yeah.
And then once you get down there, it's open again.
I mean, where can we, if that rope ladder can get us almost all the way there. Look at, I'm putting all my weight in the world on this beam I'm standing on.
Yeah.
This rope ladder will get us there.
Okay.
Easy, we don't have to use it. And Johnny and I started down. And I had the rungs of the ladder break from underneath me. Johnny? No. Johnny? Hold on, man. Just give me a minute. Oh shit. Dude. Fuck. It was in the top 3 scariest moments of my life. We regrouped, we came back another day, and I remember going down. We went down tons of ladders here, down and down and down and down and down. And finally, after a few hours, we hit the bottom. And I remember we hit the bottom here, which is crazy now looking at the map. It was all adding up just as it should. So we hit the bottom here. We're at the bottom of the bouillon. And looky what we have here. Oh boy. And then there was even track. It was like finally, you know, after tons of searching, I found the way into the Union Mine. Because as you can see, that right there should just lead into all sorts of different things. But no, there's collapse. Say it ain't so, no!
Bummer.
The hell are these tracks going then?
They're beats me, but no one can.
No. And so that way was shut off. And that was a whole nother exploration. So then as you look around here, if you look right around here, you'll see that the 0 tunnel potentially leads down into the 400. And so a different day, the exploration was circled around the 0. And I remember going back, and right around where you think it will connect, there was a winze or a connection. And there's an ore box there, and there's ladders. And I remember going down, getting excited going down, getting to the bottom of the ladders, going and thinking that it was a dead end because there's tons of collapse. It looked like it all stopped. But I walked up over a hill and looked down, and a whole nother stope revealed itself. Whoa. So I was pumped up. I went back, regrouped, grabbed Johnny. Today's the day. We went back here, checked out the 0 tunnel a second time, went down, went over, rappelled down, and nothing. There you go. So that too was a dead end, unfortunately.
Ooh. Avalanche.
So far, my tries to get in to the Union without using the hoist have been unsuccessful, but I'm not done. If you look here, you have the Buena Vista Tunnel, there's the safeguard over here, and of course, there's the Omega. So there's still options out there. I'm still confident that, you know, year 2, I'm gonna find my way in. All right, so from the general store, probably the next 2 projects I spent time working on was the chapel. That was originally a mechanic's garage that was just purely used for storage, including the outside of it when I came here a year ago. And originally, this thing was owned by a guy named Ned Reddy. And Ned Reddy was a gunslinger. In fact, he is a gunslinger with more confirmed incidences in the Encyclopedia of Western Gunslingers than Doc Holliday, Wyatt Earp, Johnny Ringo, or a lot of these infamous Western characters. And he owned a bunch of stuff at Cerro Gordo. He owned this garage, he owned a saloon that used to be up there, and he owned all sorts of other things in mining towns. And so originally, this building here was just the center part. So if you see that center frame, that was the mechanic's garage. There was even a pit underneath it. This building over here, this was the Mule Barn. So as mules would come into town, they would stage them in here. And this structure used to have a wooden roof on top of it. So this is where all the mules that brought everything up here would stay. You kind of see where they would feed them and such. So Mule Barn, and then as technology got better and cars were a thing, Ned Reddy's garage. And a year ago, when I started, this thing was floor to ceiling, just junk. It was a thing that people would store whatever they could not find another place for in here. And that led to a lot of work. These days, unfortunately, I'm starting to use it as a similar thing, as a storage. But when I came in here, there were stacks and stacks of wood everywhere in here. And I moved it all out here. sorted through it, used a lot of it for other projects. Like the wood from here was the wood that I did the renovation to my writer's cabin that's just over that crest that we'll go to later. And after that, I just spent time cleaning it, sorting it. And one day my hope is that this is like a small screening room. You know, obviously somebody had that idea before, but I thought it'd be really cool to, you know, bring teams up here, have them shoot videos around Cerro Gordo, and then premiere them here. We'll do the whole thing. We're gonna have, you know, the red carpet here with a rope, and everybody's gonna have to get dressed up. I think it'd be hilarious to get super dressed up in a ghost town. And then you come in, you know, you give your ticket. This is the kind of like the little counter or whatever, the ticket guy. You come in here, everybody mingles. You know, this is probably a little bar over here. Over in this wing, I'll put a bar as well. There'll be a bar over there, and then the premiere happens. That's the dream, you know, you gotta have vision and dreams for these places. That's what kind of keeps you going through the long days and the long nights of labor. But I have a bunch of hope for this. For now, it's, you know, Disco Central, and it's also staging. So all this wood that you see is being sorted for different projects. And the majority of this wood, you see it's very thick. This one is all taken out of mines. And so this is old growth, true, you know, 2-inch thick lumber that I'll put to use. Maybe I'll build the bar out of it, you know? I think a bar back here would be very cool. You know, use this corner, bar, people mingle before the premiere. That's the hope, that's the dream. Like I said, you gotta have some dreams to keep these things alive. But that was one of my big projects over the last year. I know it doesn't show as much maybe on camera, but it was a lot of physical labor moving all this stuff around. To get over to the little writer's cabin, we're gonna take one of my favorite purchases of this year, the Polaris. You know, when I came up here a year ago, I definitely didn't have this. I thought about it for so long and finally pulled the trigger. And it's funny, it just opened up so much more of the property to me. You know, there's trails that truck just can't get to. And so to have this, I've been able to do everything, you know, go on trails to mines that I wouldn't have been able to go otherwise. And it's just fun, you know. One of my favorite things to do is just to unplug, put on some music, turn my phone to airplane mode, and I just take this thing and cruise. And I've experienced some of the most beautiful sights and beautiful sunsets of my life. This is it. My hideaway from the hideaways. My escape from the escape. My ghost town within a ghost town. And let me first point out something. I'm not trying to brag, but I did create this deck for my very first project here at Cerro Gordo. I knew nothing about building a deck, but let's see. A year later, pretty sturdy. You know, all this wood came from that church that I was showing, so it's pretty good. And before, when you go in here, it's completely undecorated, and there is no ceiling. So all of this is new. I mean, it's new to this. It's not new wood, obviously. And then a little bit of decoration. Threw in this mattress, and the only place it would fit. And of course, the writer's desk, complete with, you know, mouse droppings. But I think I'm gonna spend a lot of time in this over the next couple of days. You know, it has become my place to kind of reflect, other than the sunset spot. So sit here, look out that window, and just think about everything that's been going on for the past 12 months. You know, there's that Jimmy Buffett quote that says, "I spent a day trying to recall the whole year." I think that's what I'm gonna do today. So shout out Jimmy Buffett. That's a little known secret that you might not know about me. I'm actually a massive parrot head, which is Jimmy Buffett's fans. So if you like Jimmy Buffett, let me know your favorite song below. I actually, even more of a big reveal, I have one tattoo, and 100% of my tattoos are Jimmy Buffett related. it took me a few months to settle into the fact that Cerro Gordo was going to be the project, the one that I was willing to work on from sunup to sundown. And for a long time, that's just what I was doing. I would wake up before the sun rose and start cleaning the general store. And then I'd find my way to bed well after midnight after painting the bunkhouse walls for hours. And I truly felt in that time that I was firing on all cylinders and giving it my all. The end of the day would just bring that beautiful feeling of exhaustion that I knew I had put in an honest day's work, and that I would do it all again the next day. And then the American Hotel burned down. And I remember that night I was sleeping in the Bellshaw house, and I woke up to what I thought was fireworks. There was this loud popping, and when I looked out my window, I saw the side of the hill glowing. I put on my slippers, I went to the front window, and that's just kind of when my heart dropped. I saw the hotel fully engulfed. I remember physically pinching myself really hard to make sure that it wasn't a nightmare. It was among the most devastating moments of my life. It's something to come out and see your hopes, dreams, life savings, and what you work towards literally go up in flames in front of you. And the weeks that followed were very trying. They're some of the most trying in my life. But I do think that, on the other side of that, I grew a lot, for better or worse. The fire of this past year is part of Cerro Gordo's history. There's nothing that I can do that'll bring it back outside of rebuilding it. And one of the first things that comforted me was the old owner of Cerro Gordo visited the day after it happened. And as soon as I saw him, I just burst into tears because I felt like I had let him down in some way. I remember he kind of looked at me, shook his head, and told me that it was meant to happen, and that for better or worse, this was part of Cerro Gordo's history now, and that it was up to me to write the next chapter. It was time for me to put my own thumbprint on the town's history. I doubled down or tripled down after that. Every waking moment was about the town, about making sure what was here remained and what was lost was rebuilt. And as I started down that path, I found this level of support that I've never seen or felt before. From viewers of this channel and friends and even strangers from the surrounding area. I think sometimes it takes a tragedy to bring people together. And that's what seemed to happen after the fire. People who were on the sidelines before watching suddenly jumped in to help. They donated their money, their time, and their skills to help with the rebuild. And that support is really what got me through that time. I'll never forget the people who were there during that. It made me truly realize the importance of being there for people in the time of need. And in the months since, I've really made it a point to check in with friends and family more than I did before the fire, to try to be there for anyone that I know that's going through a hard time. Rebuilding and seeing progress on the hotel brings me a level of comfort. I'm not sure that I fully dealt with the fire emotionally, and it's still hard for me to talk about it sometimes, but each step towards the new hotel helps ease that pain a little bit. For the last number of months, I've been full steam ahead of getting this thing rebuilt and making sure that it stands for hundreds of years, so many generations of people from now can come, experience the hotel, and learn from the history here. The fire also brought me a lot closer to the town. Understanding its past became even more important to me while rebuilding its future. And rebuilding a hotel from scratch zoomed my focus way out to create something not just for my time here, but for generations of people to enjoy. And that's a mentality that I've brought to the property in total. I think one of the most amazing things this year, and something that I never take for granted, is just how much this channel has helped rebuild this town, bring life back to it. I'm sitting right now on 6 trees that are rough milled into perfect 2-inch lumber that was donated by somebody who watches this channel. And you know, beyond that, we've had volunteer labor, skills, expertise, materials, and equipment, all donated by people that watch this channel. So I thank you guys so much. You know, this is unbelievably kind of everybody. And I do want you all to know that you, even just watching this, are helping rebuild Cerro Gordo. And I think that's cool. You know, I think there's a lot of communities online, and this has become a community that is just so kind and supportive of each other. And it's something that I didn't have last year, and now, you know, I can't really think of being without. So thank you guys so much for everything. Wood, views, anything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if this is your first video you're watching and you want to support Cerro Gordo, I encourage you to subscribe to this channel. Every week, I try to document my experience bringing this abandoned town back to life, and your support would just mean everything. So thank you all so much. Lola's Palace of Pleasure. This is one of the original brothels here at Cerro Gordo. At one point in time, there were 4. Now, just 1. And this one, if you were to have looked at it 12 months ago, was leaning about like that. And so it's a recent project, but part of that was just to straighten that thing back up. It had no back wall on it. So put in a new back wall. The hope here is kind of to create a museum part of the tour. So create this kind of staged how it used to be and let people look around. And this is my most recent project and one that I'm most proud of. This was completely gone. This is basically just garbage and dirt, and that wall was kind of laying on it. And so over the past month or so, I completely took out all this wood. This is down to just dirt right here. And I numbered all of the boards so I could put them back in order. And then slowly, I rebuilt the floor. You know, first was just leveling out the dirt. Then it was creating this frame. Then it was creating the box. Then it was putting back in the joists and, you know, securing the joists if they need it, some extra support. And then starting to put back on some of the floorboards. And at this point, you can kind of see where the floor is going to be. You know, I think it's looking pretty great. And you can even see the ghost mark of where the wall in between rooms was, right there. So, my hope over the next month or 2 is to get this whole thing back to how it was, you know, walls and roof on it all. You know, and put that back up so you can see the slant, to try to mimic that. And I was able to salvage a lot of the wood from the different walls. So the idea is to make it look similar to this, but just times 3. So boom, 1, 2, 3. And then, like I said, decorate them a little bit. So when people are taking a tour of the town, it's just another part of the tour. And that way people can get a sense of, you know, what it used to be like back in the day. Because previously there was something like 400 buildings here at Cerro Gordo. And it's hard to imagine now, but this was Main Street that went down, and there was tons of buildings before the town as you see it now. And then up here, if you would walk up, any flat spot you see used to be a building. So there used to be a huge hotel here called the Cosmopolitan, and there's another building here. And you know, if you get up on top of it and you look, you can see that it was flat. There's obviously wood still here. So this is a big building. Same right above it, another big building. Over here was the hotel, as I mentioned, and then above that, another building. And so if you look at it from this perspective and you see the grading and the levelness, you can kind of start to imagine what Cerro Gordo must have been like with all of that thing going on. And what's crazy to me to think about is, like, these days, I come up here for peace. You know, right now, if I stop talking, it's basically silent, you know, and so it's a very peaceful place that I come and I can reflect. But back in the day, it was basically the opposite of that. You know, you have to figure the mine up there was going 24 hours a day. So there's 12-hour shifts. So the mine was always going. There's numerous smelters going, so melting stuff with smoke in the air everywhere. And these saloons and brothels were also opened all day. And at its heyday, there was something like a murder per week. So you imagine just chaos, you know, like noise from the saloons, noise from the mine, noise from the brothels, noise from the gunfights. So it was just a very chaotic place, and now it's very peaceful And I think the contrast is something that plays out often here at Cerro Gordo, you know? We're gonna continue on our tour. The Belshaw house is the first house that I stayed in here. We've done some cleaning too. The Gordon house, cleaning as well. And then that little cabin up there is almost done. So I can't wait to show you guys the progress of that. So this road going out to the cabin was a project itself a few months ago. This road is the original yellow grade road that led into Cerro Gordo. You know, the road now is down there, but that wasn't the original one. The original one was up here, but over the course of 150 years, it was overgrown and erosion had basically washed the whole road out. If I wanted to work on this, I needed a reliable way to get there. So hence digging this road. And while digging this road, all sorts of treasures revealed themselves. You know, as you can see, I had to dig down a few feet. And as you dig down a few feet, and there used to be thousands of people living here. So all sorts of stuff made itself available, including 32 bottles in one small clump. And as a kind of follow-up to that story, I was talking to an archaeologist, and they're like, oh, did the bottles have a certain film on them? And I was like, oh yeah, they all did. And he's like, yeah, that happens after about 100 years of organic matter on them. So basically, what I had found was an old outhouse that they had thrown the bottles in. Don't worry, all the kind of germs had been gone by that point, but kind of a funny little story about that. What do you think? Is that like a cabin or what? Crazy stories. If you look up there, you see that hole? So all this is recycled wood. All this wood is from the 1800s. And so in that hole up there, as they're putting up the wood, there was a bullet lodged into the wood. And I'll show you guys a photo of it. But after it was taken down, we were looking at it and thought, you know what? It belongs back up there. So the bullet is actually back up in the ceiling. So this ceiling has an original pistol bullet from the 1800s in it. Just kind of adding to that character and lore of Cerro Gordo. You know, seeing all this wood up on the walls makes those long hikes out all worth it. One of my favorite things over the last 12 months is getting to know the property more by hiking. You know, I think reconnecting with nature is something that I've really benefited from this year. It's changed the way I live and think and feel. You know, we came from nature, and it's so important to get back out there and be part of it. It was one of the biggest things missing from my life when I was living in a city. Because I think nature just forces you to experience awe, to be humbled, to put your life and the situations within your life in perspective. You know, it's not an easy thing to do when you're living in the city. But out here, the nature doesn't really leave you a choice. It also reminds you of the beauty all around you. You know, every day I get to walk in the shadows of some of the most beautiful mountains in the world. Sit and look at this vast desert. Watch the sun hit the Joshua trees in just the right way. Chase wild horses as they run along a stream. I mean, how can I ruminate on what's wrong with life in a setting like that? It's impossible. It breaks you out of whatever funk you might be in. And it's my form of meditation. You know, almost every walk, I just feel my muscles relaxing, my heart rate dropping. My thoughts generally get clearer, and I can make connections between things that I've been struggling with. You know, my year here has confirmed one thing for me. Time in nature isn't a nice to have, it's a must have. It isn't something that you make time for if you can. You make time for your other things if you can. I truly think it's that important. And that said, I still do like to set little missions for each of my hikes. And this past week, I set a big one. I wanted to retrieve one of the 100-year-old ore buckets that used to be part of the Cerro Gordo tramway. I came across these buckets a few months ago when I walked the entirety of the tram. They're beautiful, but they're super heavy, miles from the closest road and the side of a steep hill. And at that time I said, hey, I might need some help. And you all answered, So this past weekend, I made the trek back there with a few friends to see if we can get a few of these historic buckets back to town. So tomorrow, I am finally going to go retrieve that ore bucket that I found on my tramway hike. And the problem is, it's about here on the side of a hill, and the closest road is back here, and the closest road to get to is there. So what I'm trying to investigate now is where to leave a truck so at the end of hiking this thing miles out, we don't have to then walk up the road as well. Luckily, my friend Johnny will be here, as well as a couple of volunteers that watched the channel to help with this expedition. So what I think we're going to do is in the morning, around 8, Johnny and I will take the truck down, dump it somewhere around here, and then I'll take the razor and bring everybody as close as I can to this peak. We'll have to hike down and around and over to about here. And then from there, it's like a shale for a long time downhill. And then just a long, probably 2-mile hike up and over the desert to retrieve it. It's going to be quite the expedition, but hey, at the end, we will have another official Cerro Gordo ore bucket back in the town core. Okay, so the mission today, retrieve this ore bucket. We got Ryan and Tim helping out. And between the 4 of us, we are bringing one of these back here. Yep, looking good. Johnny looking like a psycho. We're taking a little bit easier route this time. Got some new boots for the hike. Thank you to whoever sent these. Hoka's. They're pumped up early. We're gonna get this ore bucket. And so this day started out with a plan in my head to go and retrieve these buckets from the side of a hill. And I had a couple friends join me, and we didn't know how long it was going to take because I couldn't quite remember the exact distances. And as soon as we got there, we kind of realized the trek ahead of us. You know, it would have been 1/2 the distance just to go back up the hill to where we started, but that would have been going up a shale cliff. So we decided to go with gravity downhill, and it turned into an adventure.
Okay, I'm off in a hurry.
So there it is. What do you think?
I think we got a long way to go.
I'd have to agree. Now looking at it, it is a stretch. And that one down there might be in better shape actually now looking at it. But this one has the label on it, which I like. You know, it shows the Montgomery Company. You know, at first we were slipping and sliding. You try out all sorts of different ways of carrying these things. You know, upside down, right side up. 4 people carrying it, 3 people carrying it, 1 person carrying it over their shoulder, sliding it down the mountain, you know, flipping it over the mountain. Any way we could to get these things down the mountain.
Okay, stop whipping me!
Oh, shit. What do you think here? What are we stuck on?
Obviously, it's stronger than you.
Yeah. I think we just gotta flip it to this. And this thing is catching on it's actually hurting us, catching on the plants. But I think we flip it back over so this is
that one easy or is it okay?
If you drag it, it will be.
Yeah.
And then flip it up. Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
There we go. No, all good. Yeah, no, not a good one, yeah. Well, gotta exhaust all options, I guess.
Yeah.
And after a number of hours, we kind of developed this system where We took one of the buckets apart to make it less heavy, and we just kept doubling back. Oh, our hammer broke.
Really break them down?
No, the rock broke.
That adds a who's carrying it?
What was the?
I'll do whatever, like somebody else doesn't want to do. I don't care, I'll do whatever.
Johnny seems resigned to that, so I'll grab one of these.
I mean, I can do the bucket too. I don't care. I'll do whatever.
We can
Switch it out.
rotate as people are getting tired of certain shit. We found this old water or oil bucket, and that was probably 3 to 4 times heavier than the standard ore bucket that we had. So what we would do is one person would walk ahead with the top of the ore bucket, 2 people would walk behind with the bucket, and then all of us would circle back and help with the water cooler. And so it just became this thing of, 100 yards ahead, 100 yards back, 100 yards ahead, 100 yards back. So we're really walking 3 or 4 times the actual distance we got. All right. Yeah, I'm ready. Oh, God damn it. No, I'm just...
Oh, that's a lot. That's fucking third wheel now.
You can take a break because you muscled this thing for a minute.
Yep. Yeah. To me, bringing these ore buckets back to Cerro Gordo was saving a bit of history for future generations. That's how I see a lot of these explorations for treasures up here, as a race against time. These things are going to get lost to the elements in the mines or on the side of the hill. So there's an urgency to get them back to a safe place so more people can enjoy them and learn from them. Each item tells its own story, and if I can better understand each item's story, then I can better understand the story of the town as a whole. And I can relay that to others so they can also benefit from the knowledge. And I love, more than almost anything, learning everything I can about these items that I find, and then being able to tell people who visit or even watch this channel about them. I get great satisfaction out of that. I think we all had a pretty good time. It was, an adventure if nothing else. And at the end of the day, when we finally got these things loaded into the truck and back at Cerro Gordo, we all sat around and enjoyed a hard-earned beverage and talked about how the future generations would enjoy these ore buckets back at Cerro Gordo. Back in Cerro Gordo. Treasure is secured. And here we go. I gotta say, one of my favorite things of this year was all the animals. Cats included. I got these cats, not by choice really. One day a rancher from up in Bishop called me. He's like, "Hey Brent, you want some cats?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Their mother died. I'm gonna put them out in the field." It's like, all right. I was never a cat person growing up. I've always had dogs. So, suddenly, come here. I found myself, come here, with all sorts of cats. And they were so small I could hold them in my hand. The first few weeks I just had to bottle feed them. And now look at them. Woo! They're so big. And it's really exciting, I think I've spoiled them to the point where the point of them was supposed to be to go outside and be mousers, and take care of things. But now they're pretty pampered. They live a great life inside. And I can't wait to see them kind of grow with the property over the coming years.
What's up, guys? How are you? Elon, Beretta, Tofu, looking beautiful. These guys came from a farmer outside of Bishop. And so one day I decided that I wanted goats. Because I've had goats before. I had a goat in Austin, Texas when I lived there. And there was just no life up here at all. It was just me and nothing else. So I decided I wanted goats. And so I called around. I called the feed store in Bishop. It turns out the owner of that store had some baby goats. And within a couple days later, these guys were making their way back to Cerro Gordo. They're boar goats. They're going to become 300 pounds, and one day they'll just roam the countryside. Welcome to an undisclosed mine location. Undisclosed because I believe, other than the Union Mine, this mine is most likely to have the elusive Levi jeans I've been looking for. And I believe that for a few reasons. One, they've found Levi jeans here before. That's a fact. I know it. It's coming from a very reputable source. Two, in my expeditions in this mine, I have found 2 pairs of pants. Neither Levi's, but both pants themselves. And as I was looking through my footage from earlier this year, I realized I had explored this mine, but never shared. So I'm going to share with you the last time I went in here, and I'll say this. Over the next year, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in here. And my fingers are crossed that this mine, right here, is where I'm going to find those Levi's. But this was earlier this year with my friend Johnny. This mine is huge. It's like a maze that never ends. There's ladders up, there's ladders down, there's ore chutes, there's stopes, there's everything you could ever want back in a mine. And it would take months probably to explore the whole thing. But when Johnny and I went back there, we focused on one area that I had found clothing in before. There was a chute, an ore chute going up to a different level, that it seemed like the miners were just throwing their clothes down the chute and they're getting stuck in the chute. And previously there, I had found a bunch of shirts, 1 pant leg, and some other items. And so, given that Johnny and I only had a few hours, I focused in on just that area. And it did not disappoint. So, we got some potential pants in here. It's stuck in the chute. We're gonna try to push it out. And we got some pants on our hands.
I need to move this rock. Or this board.
The board's so thick though.
Let me get the crowbar and get it out. Hopefully this rock doesn't break for me.
What is it? Oh, it's not too much, huh?
No, it's... Here, let me lay it.
Part of the pant leg though.
Yeah, I think that shirt was
Cool.
biggest find here, yeah.
I'll make you going up.
Okay.
It goes up a ways. Hello there.
Hello. Coming up?
Yeah, come on up. There's a ledge right here. It's super steep right here though. Like terrifyingly so. The t-shirt, but again they just wrapped it around the chute entrance for some reason, or the chute. Or they're throwing it down from above the chute. Oh, it's almost loose. Yeah, there we go. Give me a shirt. Oh, we got buttons? Oh, come on. Come on. Look right above you.
Ah, yes, I can get that.
And then if you look over there in the cracks,
Over this way?
yeah, there's like fabric all in the cracks, even something that looks like denim. Look right above you. No.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try to get it from up here, but I'll let you do that first so I don't rain rocks on you.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, that's sketchy. That's the whole chute ladder, right?
No, this is yeah, this is the chute wall. I'm just gonna move it
Okay.
a little.
That might help get the t-shirt.
Yeah, it'll help.
I mean, I don't want to get anybody too excited too early, but there's definitely some garments over here. Under a lot of rock. Bluish in nature. Has a button on it that's very old and metal. Pretty bad shape, unfortunately. And a bunch of buttons. Jeans and some buttons. Buttons on jeans. And nothing in the pocket. Some 2D motion. Or even just like a penny from whatever it was. See, there's the other buttons there. I have the metal buttons on it. A question that I get asked a lot is, why would there be full jeans back in a mine? You know, you can understand why there would be parts of jeans. They would sew the end together to create a bag to maybe carry dynamite or tools, you know, cut some to wrap around pipes, cut up squares to, if they had to use the restroom, and all sorts of other things. But why, oh why, would people have full pairs of pants back in the mines? A number of months ago, I was able to speak to the historian at Levi Jeans, and she told me an answer that, in my mind, is definitive. So, back in the days when they first made Levi's, they were made almost as like coveralls or overalls, right? So you'd put them over your regular jeans and you'd go to work. And for that reason, the Levi's were owned by the mine. They weren't owned by the miners. So the miners would come to work, put the Levi's over their stuff, at the end of the day, take them off and leave them there. And there would usually be a mud room, and there would be company boots back there as well as company jeans. So sometimes if you find a lot of pairs of jeans in these holes in the mines, that's because it was a mud room. And that's amazing. If I answer the question for it, it makes sense. And for me, it leads my curiosity closer back to the Union Mine. Because at the Union Mine, right next to the hoist house, is the change room. That's where miners changed every day. So that must have been where the Levi's were kept. That's not to say that there weren't mud rooms in the Union Mine or that there weren't mud rooms in this, but I know that they changed there and I know they wore Levi jeans. So over this next year, I'm gonna spend a lot more time kind of poking around the change room. But if you're wondering the reason that there's jeans back in mines, it's because the jeans were owned by the company and the miners would change into the jeans when they got to work and change out of them when they left work. And so I'm gonna keep the search alive. I'm gonna keep going for it. But I wanted to share that information with you guys because I think it kind of answers a few questions people have been asking. You know, there's a lot of beautiful things about living in an abandoned ghost town, but there's also a few trade-offs you have to make and inconveniences to put up with, including every week I have to drive down to my truck and fill up all this water from a town about 9 miles away. That takes up a decent amount of time. Anything you need to get is far away. You think gas, groceries, hardware store supplies, everything is a process. And so as part of that, you just start planning ahead more. You know, it kind of builds that self-reliance where you're not gonna be able to run to Home Depot 3 times to complete a project. You know, if you want something for lunch tomorrow, you better remember it a couple weeks before when you go on your supply run. And so I've enjoyed that. You know, I've liked having to be a bit more purposeful and intentional about everything, including my water supply and my food supply and everything else. And I hope that I can kind of take that with me for the rest of my life. But that's not to say that everything is fully enjoyable. While the water is one thing, I'll turn this around and show you guys something else. That is how you use the bathroom here at Cerro Gordo. And that would be an outhouse. And so to give you an idea of the reality of Cerro Gordo, let me show you the outhouse. And this is the best outhouse we have. This is the outhouse with a view of Mount Whitney, named Outhouse Magazine's Outhouse of the Year 5 years in a row. We're hoping for 6 this year, fingers crossed. Windows get broke because the wind's insane. And if you're gonna go in, that's what you're working with every day for a year. So, just something to think about as you're considering living in an abandoned ghost town. The realities of it. The realities are it's beautiful, it's amazing, it's fun, it's the time of my life, but you're not going to do things like just turn on a sink and the water work. You're going to fill up truckloads of water like this every week. You're going to have to plan your grocery shopping weeks in advance, and that is going to be your bathroom every day, 365 days a year. I don't think any singular decision I've made in my entire life has impacted me more than buying Cerro Gordo. You know, it's one of these things that I knew at the time that it was a big deal, that it was a big jump for me, but I could have never imagined the place that it would take me. And I can't even imagine now the places it could take me in the future. And as I think back to that, I just feel so grateful that I was able to have the opportunity to work on a project like this. You know, it's brought me a level of satisfaction and comfort and purpose and meaning that I've never felt in my entire life. And it's one that has really forced me to become better, you know, to utilize all of my skill sets and even develop ones that I didn't have. And I think it's very easy to stick with the path you're on. You know, I could have very easily stayed in investment banking for the rest of my life. And even when I purchased Cerro Gordo, you know, I had already had 2 or 3 careers. So this was later on in life. And to be able to find something like this that ignites you and invigorates you in the way that a project like this does is just something that I'm hugely grateful for. And I think after being here a few months, I realized that it wasn't the town that was changing, it was me. You know, I fully started to realize the task at hand and accepting that this is going to be the project for a really long time, you know, my whole life even. And I think that there's comfort in that level of commitment. You know, I had spent my life pinging from one project to the next, searching for the one that would call on all of me, you know, require every ounce of energy and brain power. And I hadn't found that before Cerro Gordo, but after a month or so here, it fully sank in that this is it, you know, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm going to be spending all of my time on. And once my mind settled into that notion, everything got easier and harder at the same time. You know, easier in the sense that I didn't have to spend all this mental energy thinking about what project would come next, but harder in the sense that I finally found that challenge I was looking for, and it was time to truly test what I was made of. So there you have it. 1 year living in the abandoned ghost town of Cerro Gordo. And what a beautiful year it was. Right now, I'm sitting watching the sunset, and you may notice that's not my typical sunset spot. That's because today, Mother Nature provided me with over 6 inches of fresh powder, blocking my path to my typical sunset spot. But that's okay. You know, this year started with my plans being interrupted by snow, and it seems like my year will end with my plans being interrupted by snow. But the difference is, I'm a lot more prepared now than I was then. I'm a lot more confident now than I was then. And I love that. You know, if I look back over this past year, there was very specific goals that I had. You know, rebuild this cabin, explore this mine, get to this place. But really the overarching goal was just to live a better life, you know, to develop more self-confidence, you know, self-sufficiency, some new skills, and just really live, you know, as opposed to just existing. And I think if that was the overarching goal, it's hard to fail. And so I hope going into year 2, I can keep that in mind. I do have some very specific goals. I want to reopen the American Hotel. I cannot wait to share stories with many of you. And I'm gonna explore some mines, find some cool treasure, and do all sorts of other things. But mainly, I hope to continue developing that self-reliance and just good life. And as I sit here kind of reflecting over the past year, the main thing I'm left with is gratitude. Gratitude for this town and every single person watching this video. And this year has brought me more meaning, purpose, adventure, excitement, and just true love of what I do than any other year of my life. And it's brought more amazing people into my life than any other year. And that's because of this channel. So thank you guys very much. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for sticking around, and make sure to stick around because year 2 of living in an abandoned ghost town will start next week. So until then, I'm signing out. I hope no matter what gets thrown your way this week, whether it's 6 inches of snow or anything else, you take it in stride and make the best of it. And until then, I'll be here, you'll be there, and I'll see you all next week.